Hello my loves, welcome to this Ask Jenny Belly. This one is all about planning the new year that's coming in. So this question comes from Sarah, and Sarah says, "Hi Jenny Belly, I love your videos, groups and classes. Your down to earthiness and amazing creative talent makes you my favourite teacher to learn from." Thank you. I've seen that you use the Leonie Dawson Workbooks. I wanted to get some advice on using these. I got mine for 2016 and feel quite disappointed in how far I've got with them. Half of the workbooks are not filled out and the other half contains things I haven't got around to doing or achieved, and it makes me feel like I haven't gotten very far this year. I have brought the 2017 workbooks, but now I'm wondering if there is any point. Any words from you would be much appreciated. Thanks in advance, Sarah. Okay, so I have thought about this for you, Sarah, and there are 9 tips, even better, that I'm going to give you for using your workbooks. Okay, so you said in there that you've only filled out half of the workbook, and I want to say, first of all, you do not have to fill out all of the sections. If you don't know what I'm talking about, these are the workbooks. They're basically planners for achieving your dreams in the next year. And they do contain a lot of sections, and maybe all sections aren't applicable to you. So either rip them out, which I wouldn't recommend because you don't necessarily know what's going to happen this year and it might become useful to you. But if it's making you feel, there's some negative connotations around it because you haven't filled out the workbook, then rip them out by all means, or paint over them or use them for notes or whatever. You don't have to do every single section. So I'm going to go into more as to why that is important in the other points, I feel, but I want to get into the other points because the next one's all about being practical. The third one's all about dreaming, using your workbooks to dream, and then the fourth one is all about balancing them up. So these points work together, but number two is the practical. How much can you actually do in a year? We can often, when we get down, we go through our workbooks and we're like, oh yeah, I've got all this to do, and it's January, so time feels like it's stretching out. We've got this whole year to do all of this stuff, and we can overestimate how much we can actually do in a year. So by August, September, October, when we haven't done half of what we wanted to do, which is where you are, Sarah, we can feel like we are underachieving, underperforming. And the fact is, that isn't the truth. It's just that at the beginning of the year, we didn't actually sit down properly and say, okay, so look at whatever plans you have, whatever dreams you have, whatever goals you have for the year, and say, how much time can I dedicate to this per week? How many hours per week? We've only got 52 weeks in a year, and when you look at it like that, time doesn't stretch on so much. It's only 52 weeks, and you take out the holidays and the times when you're probably not going to have any time to work on your goals. And to be honest, Sarah, you saying that you haven't achieved what you wanted to, I mean, these workbooks or any planners for the year, anybody that sits down at the beginning of the year and tries to plan out their year, or not even planning it out in terms of I'm going to do this and then that and that, but then just looking at your year and figuring out how you can live your best year. What is it that you want to live this year? How is it you want to exist? Even that, people that aren't achievers, that aren't looking to improve their lives, aren't even going to do that. So first of all, Sarah, I would prefer you to be feeling like you're underachieving something, and actually looking at this stuff rather than just going along day-to-day life and not even bothering, because many people are on autopilot and they don't think about designing their life how they want it to be. So it's much better to have put out some goals into the universe, to not have achieved them, and to maybe feel a bit bad about that. But you can still feel good in that you have tried, that you are looking at this stuff versus just not doing it at all. Okay, so any little bit is better than nothing. Okay, so even if it's just a little bit in terms of looking at what you want to do, but not actually doing it, is better than not looking at what you want to do at all. Okay, so look through, Sarah, your workbook for 2016 and say, were you real in what you wanted to achieve, or were you overestimating how much time you had? You always want to put in some buffer time as well for hiccups that come in. I've had a really rough year. Hiccups have come in everywhere for me. So I am now looking at my 2016 and being quite proud actually what I did, because a couple of months ago I was looking at it going, oh no, I haven't done anything, much like you, Sarah, and I was feeling very down on myself. But when I actually look through what's gone on this year, so look through your year and say, did I really have the time to do all of this? Did I overestimate? Now, number 3 is, there is another way to use the planner, and this is kind of, you can't get away from it at the beginning of the year. It's looking at this year, next year that's coming up, as being your dreams. It's a fantasy, and you can't get around this being a dream planner because you don't know what's going to happen in the next year. So you can, if you want to, just use the whole thing as a, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if I could do this? Wouldn't it be nice if I can do that? You can totally go out there with some wacky things. And, you know, I'm going to live a month in Venice. That's one of my things that I really want to do. Oops, sorry. So I do want to do that at some point, and I could put that down in my 2017 workbook in January if I wanted to. But I know that I'm probably not going to do that. So I personally don't want to do that because I feel like it's tipping the balance too much, and it can make me feel bad if I go too far out there with my goals and dreams. But if it makes you feel, if it boosts you up to do that, to think, oh, I could do this and I could do that, and if you haven't got any particular goals that are set in concrete, then that's probably how I would use that workbook. And the fact is, things change anyway. My 2016 workbook is full of plans that I really wanted to do that changed, and it's now half full of things I don't want to do. Other things came in, other ideas came in, other projects came in, other plans came in. So things change anyway, so you can't help but it being a bit of fantasy. That is just the nature of it. That's the nature of our lives. Things change. It's the nature of our own desires. Things change. So yeah, it's always going to be fantasy because you're looking forward to the future, you're not looking back. So my workbook now, I look in 2016, my 2017 ones haven't turned up yet, but my 2016 one, I look back through it and it's kind of interesting. I see how much I have changed. So this is also where checking as you're going along throughout the year comes in, which is another point we're going to talk about in a minute. Number 4 is about making sections for yourself that don't exist in the workbook. So much like I said at the beginning, where you don't have to fill out every section because every section is probably not applicable to you, and you don't have to make yourself do sections that aren't important to you. Something might be a little bit applicable to you, but you just don't want to fill it out, and that's fine. And give yourself permission to do that, but also give yourself permission to fill in sections that don't actually exist. So there's this whole section in the back for brainstorming. Can you see all of this section? Now what I do in that, you can see here, I make plans that aren't in the workbook in this section. So what I have is I have my monthly net incoming and outgoings. So there is a section for your finances at the beginning. It's what did you make in the year before and what do you plan on making, but there isn't a section for what is it you are actually making. So I put that in the back, what's coming in, what's going out. So if there's anything that you have in other diaries or you keep track of elsewhere, bring it into this workbook. It's another great way to use the workbook. And then what I also have is projects in the back where I have tried to limit the time. So I haven't gone for a full year. I've sectioned it off, which is another point we're going to talk about in a minute, as to how to make your goals more real, more bring them in, rather than looking at this whole year and stretching it out and feeling like, oh, you've got all the time in the world, and then the end of the year comes around and you're like, ah. So this is how I kind of condense. I don't look at it all the time as a full year. I bring it down to the months, I bring it down to weeks, and so that's what I use the back for. So basically customize this workbook to be exactly what you need it to be. Tip number 5 is keeping colourful pens and things to use in your planner. Now, you might have seen this if you're in my Creative Gold journaling class, which I'm pretty sure you are, Sarah. There is colourful pens in here, there is stickers in here, and things that I use for my workbook. So this is my planning session kit. You guys that are in my Creative Gold journaling class would have seen this. And I use that with my workbook, and I like the workbook purely for the fact that it is colourful and it is enjoyable to use. I am not just saying that because, you know, I have an affiliate link, which I do, and if you buy through my link I get a little bit of commission. I'm not just saying that for that. I actually use these workbooks. I have other workbooks, here, proof, I bought other workbooks, and they aren't as enjoyable to use because they are just blur as you fill them out. I know that this is kind of a superficial point, but it really does make a difference, particularly when you've had a big break. I had a big break in using my workbooks in 2016. As I said, I didn't have a great year, and at those times when my year wasn't doing too great, I wasn't referring to my workbook. So when I came back, it was just having pictures and drawings in it and things. It gives you instant recognition as to where you are again. I can't describe it correctly, but for a creative person it just helps. It just helps you come back to it, feel welcome in it, and want to get back stuck into it. Tip number 6 is all about coming back to it. It's keeping dates to check in with your workbook in your diary. Now, it's very easy if you have the diary that goes along with it. Because you can see this is my week so far. I do use this workbook, and I customize again my workbook. I have this little bookmark in it here, and at the end it has a super shiny end of the month celebration where you can look at your workbook, you can look at your diary, and you can figure out what you did that month. And then it also has your month coming up. So this is a really easy way to check in with your workbook, because there's no point in doing it in January and not looking at it again till December. What's the point in that? You need to keep checking back. You need to see where you're changing, where your plans are changing, where you maybe aren't achieving as much as what you wanted to, where you maybe have overstretched in a different area, and that's where your now focus is on. And as I say, it's amazing how much we can change our minds in a year. So you want to keep checking in with the workbook. You want to keep making sure that it is changing with you. Or you want to check in with where you veered off. If your goals are still exactly the same, then this is a great way to do that, and making sure that you use something like this. If you don't have the diary, with the workbooks, they do come with the workbooks, and I get them as a bundle. But if you don't do that, if you just get the workbooks or you just get the digital versions, put it in your diary. Just put it in your diary. Once a month is a great way to check in with where you're at. Tip number 7 is to break down your goal or your project or your plans, whatever, into weekly or monthly sections. There is this theory that a project or whatever it is you're doing will stretch to the deadline you give it, and we know this. I was one of those people at uni who would always do my essays like 2 nights or the night before it went in, even if I had 3, 4, 5 months to do it. I was always the deadline girl, and I'm pretty much that way as well now. And so you can do something in a day that you should have been doing for months. And it's the same with our projects. If you consider it, oh, I'll do it in 2017, you've given it the whole year, but you haven't put your foot down with a deadline. It will stretch to and expand to that whole year, which might have been what has happened with you in 2016, Sarah. You didn't give yourself, this is when this is going to happen, and this is when this is going to happen. So what I do is I don't give myself exact deadlines. I mean, there are a few projects that I do have exact deadlines on, like this newsletter video has to be ready for the end of the month, and the monthly challenge video that I do for my journal workshops community has to be done for the 1st of the month. I have those kind of deadlines. But for my bigger projects that I'm doing all the time, behind the scenes, working on something, there are some that stretch because I haven't given them solid dates, and then there are others, like the new class that I just created, Rock Your Online Shop, which I created in super awesome fast record speed, because I said, could I do this? I sat down and actually was talking to people. I was like, could I do this? Is this something I could do? And I challenged myself to do it in 2 weeks, which I've never ever would have considered I could do. Such a huge class. It has like nearly 50 videos in it, and it has really awesome heavy workbooks that I've created in it. It's a mammoth task, and I did it in record speed. I also like to work in 90 days or 12 weeks, depending on the task in hand. But as I say, if you give yourself a deadline that's actually a little bit less than what you would like, you tend to then have more enthusiasm, you get this momentum going, you get really focused in on this project rather than being a bit scatty and a bit all over the place. And I wrote about this at the beginning of the week. I'm doing daily blog posts on my blog every day, and the first blog post that I did was about how to complete your biggest project in super speed time. So this is all about me creating that class in 2 weeks, but basically how. And you can go and check that out if you want to. But that's how you do it, really. It's by being totally in on that, being present with that task. And what can be the downfall of having something like a workbook or a planner or even just plans for the year is they are all over here and they aren't solidly down on the ground. This is how you do it. I mean, there are mountain things where here's your goal, write down all the steps you need to take to get to the top of the mountain. Yeah, you can see I haven't filled it out because I need more space than one page to fill out one of my projects, basically. But then you've got this one, and then you've got that one, and if you've got like 50 goals, then you've got 50 mountains to climb, and you can still be like this. So give yourself shorter time frames on your projects. Don't let them stretch out for the whole year, and focus on one, then the next one, then the next one. That is how you achieve what you want to achieve. You cannot achieve what you want to being in 50 pies at once. I know that was how I started my year, and it frustrated the heck out of me because nothing was happening. Nothing was happening until pretty much the end of my 2016, where I put my foot down with this deadline and I got something done in record speed. So don't stick to a year deadline or a year plan just because you've got a workbook that says this is your next year. Make it shorter, get more laser focused than that, and use the back of the workbook to break down if you need to and get more into the details. A lot of the workbook is more top level stuff. It's your job to bring that right down and get really into the details. And once you've done that, you can look at everything you've got to do and say, can you do it in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. If it's 5 weeks, give yourself 3 weeks. Do what I did with this class and just see what you can achieve. Challenge yourself. There's still time in 2016. I've just proved that with this class. I thought, as I wrote on another blog post this week, that I was ready for 2016 to be over. I was like, this year is done. I've not done anything I wanted to. I've had an awful year. It's been an emotional year. Blah, 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 blah. I got rid of that thinking. I switched it around, and now I don't want this year to end. I want to get stuck into as much as I possibly can before this year has done. There is enough time for you to achieve something, Sarah, if you dedicate yourself to it. Go into the back of your workbook, break something down, and give it a deadline. Tip number 8 works really well with what I just said. It is accountability. So get an accountability buddy. I know people talk about this all the time, and it seems overrated until you do it. If you don't want to have just one person, then Leonie Dawson does have like a Facebook group for the workbooks. If you want to join that, you can post pictures or just write in there and use it as your way. Do it every week or whatever, and use it as your way to stay accountable. I also have a new group on journal workshops called Makers Meetup, which is like a creative staying on track group. That's why I created it, is for all of us on journal workshops to say, this is our projects, or this is what I want to do this week, or this is what isn't going so well for me, or this is what I've just created, and I'm so happy about it, whatever. It's about our creative journeys and where we are in it, and it's also about accountability, keeping ourselves on track and supporting each other. So you can come over to journalworkshops.ning.com and sign up to the Makers Meetup group if you want to help with that. I also put the chat on Fridays as well, so there's a few people just having a coffee and a chat together, which is awesome. It can just help being around other creative people who are trying to create something in the world as well, even though you're not physically with them, you're energetically with them, and it just makes you feel that you're not alone. There are other people trying to do stuff, whether that be small things or big things. You know, sometimes my creative goal for the week is just to get some art in, just to do a little bit of art. And that's another point, is that sometimes you're going to be in the flow and creating some awesome things, and other times your goal is just going to be getting up and doing a little something. That is sometimes more important than the big goals, because you can't make the big goals happen if you're stuck, if you're in resistance, if you're blocked. You need to just do those little things that you can do at that moment in time to make those bigger things happen, to be able to be back in the flow to create those bigger things. And having an accountability group or partner, or just a place to go to vent, rant, or just to feel like you're back in creative environments again, can be of great assistance. So do that, even if it's just a little something. I don't particularly like the term accountability. I would just prefer to think of it as just being with creative friends, just creatively staying on track, I tend to call it. So if you don't like the term accountability, throw it out the window. It doesn't matter. It just matters that you've got some support somewhere. And the final tip is to not stress. These workbooks are there to support you. They are not there to add pressure onto you. So if any point you're feeling like it's doing that, just leave it. Just go away from it. Just do something else. Just do a little bit of your plan, a little bit of your project, so that you can come back to your workbook and tick it off and feel like you're moving again. Don't get too much in your head. That's something that I've been told this year. Don't get in your head. Get out of it. When you feel that pressure happening, that's pressure you're putting on yourself. The workbook is not doing that. That workbook is there to support you, or the workbooks. There's the Life one and a Biz one. They are there to assist you. They are not there to stress you out, okay? So if a project is stressing you out, or if the workbook is stressing you out, it's really because the project is stressing you out. So look at it, go into it, and figure out where the stress points are, and then see how you can smooth that way, or how you can eradicate it. Throw it out. You know, sometimes just crossing out that goal that you had is getting it off the list. You don't need it. It does not have to be done just because you put it in your workbook. You really need to know that. Our priorities change, and too many people stick to what they thought they wanted, or what other people's expectations are of them, without reanalyzing where they are, what it is they want. So adapt. Nothing's set in concrete, nothing's set in stone. You can cross things out in this workbook. You can redefine what your goals are. You can change paths in your life entirely if that's what you want to do. Do not just stick to something because it's easy or it's there. If it's putting pressure on you, you don't have to fulfill that. You can completely change your mind. I hope this has helped you, Sarah. Much love, and don't forget there is still stuff you can do in 2016. Pick a goal. Pick your smallest goal that you can do, just to get one done, just to get one off the list, because it will boost your confidence. It will make you feel more invincible again, and then maybe you'll even do a bigger goal before the end of the year. Who knows? But just pick something, get moving on it, and yeah, it's as much about managing your own feelings of momentum, of productivity, of achievement, as what it is what you actually do. What you actually do doesn't matter. It's how you feel towards it that matters. And when you feel like you're in momentum, like you're productive, like you're creative, then more of that comes. But if you're feeling like I haven't done anything in 2016, then that's how you will end 2016. Believe me, I know, hands up, before November, I pretty much felt like I was doing nothing with my life in 2016. How the cookie crumbles is how you look at it. Not what you do, it's how you view what you do.